What kind of bride lets her sister walk down the aisle first? Not out of love. Not tradition. But because her parents demanded it, again. Anne Ivy. She smiled. Sure. No problem. No one blinked. No one saw it coming. But that smile. It wasn't surrender. It was a warning. Don't look away. The real ceremony is just beginning. The dress was beautiful. Ivory silk, hand-stitched lace trailing like vines across the bodice, the kind of gown girls dreamed about since they were little. But Ivy Quinn just stared at it, expressionless, unmoved, as if it belonged to someone else. She sat by the window, legs folded beneath her, fingers clenched into the fabric of her robe. Outside, the Quinn estate buzzed with preparations. Inside, it felt like a mausoleum. The gown stared back at her like a ghost. So many things had been stolen from her quietly, over time. Little things, at first. Praise. Credit. Choices. Then came the big things. College funds rerouted, job offers mysteriously rescinded, even birthday parties quietly merged into Amelia's celebrations. You'll understand when you're older, Ivy. Let Amelia go first, darling. She set such a lovely tone. She remembered standing at the top of the stairs in a too big flower girl dress, watching Amelia twirl below in a gown that shimmered under the chandelier. The applause was never for Ivy. She was always the second thought. The shadow trailing behind a golden child. Do you remember that piano recital? She whispered to no one. The one where she played Chopin, flawlessly, and yet all their mother said afterward was, Amelia looked lovely in that dress, didn't she? A knock. Knox stepped in without waiting for permission, he never did. His eyes went straight to her, bypassing the gown. Always her. You're awfully quiet, he said, closing the door behind him. Should I be worried? Only if you're them, Ivy replied, her tone dry. He walked over and perched on the edge of the armchair across from her, watching her carefully. You're thinking about backing out? She laughed, soft and bitter. If I were going to back out, I'd do it dramatically. Publicly. Possibly with fire. Knox tilted his head. But you won't. Because that would be too easy. And you don't do easy, do you? No, she said, her voice low. I do calculated. I do long games. Just like they taught me. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Tell me what's really going on. Ivy's gaze drifted back to the dress. I keep thinking about all the times I let it go. Let them win. Let Amelia shine, even when it cost me everything. She looked at him then, eyes sharp, but not angry. Just clear. I think Margaret left me something. Something they don't want me to find. And I think I've spent my whole life trying to be quiet enough, good enough, patient enough, hoping they'd finally see me. She paused. But they never saw me, Knox. Only what they could use. Knox was silent for a beat. Then he spoke, slow and deliberate. Do you want revenge, Ivy? She didn't flinch. No. A long pause. Then she added, almost too softly. I want justice. And I want them to watch it happen with champagne in their hands. Knox's lips curved into something dark and approving. Then let's give them a show they'll never forget. He stood, held out his hand. But first, you need to get through tomorrow. Oh, I will, she said, rising to her feet with quiet fire. I've waited my whole life for this aisle. And as she walked past the wedding gown, something in her eyes shifted. It was no longer just a dress. It was a weapon. The dining room of the Quinn estate was dressed like a magazine spread, crystal stemware, bone china, and enough floral arrangements to smother a small forest. But beneath the surface shimmered tension, razor-thin and humming. It was the night before the wedding. Ivy sat between Knox and Eleanor, across from Victor and Amelia. Everything about the arrangement felt deliberate, like a chessboard, pieces already placed. Eleanor raised her glass. To family. And to the future Mrs. Wilder. Ivy smiled politely, touched her glass to her lips, but didn't drink. Something in Eleanor's tone didn't sit right. Victor cleared his throat. His voice was smooth, practiced. "We've been thinking, sweetheart, about the ceremony tomorrow. Here it comes." "It's tradition," Eleanor chimed in, her smile too tight, too perfect. "In some cultures, the elder sister walking first is a symbol of blessing. A passing of grace, if you will." Ivy didn't respond. She simply stared at her fork, slowly turning it between her fingers. "We thought it would be meaningful," Victor continued, "if Amelia walked the aisle before you. Just a few steps. A gesture of unity. Of family." "A gesture," Ivy echoed softly. Her tone unreadable. Knox shifted in his seat. His hand brushed against hers under the table, subtle, grounding. "And in return," Eleanor added, her smile sharpening, "we'll handle the entire cost of the wedding. No limitations. No discussions. Everything you've dreamed of, covered." Silence. The air stilled. Even the candles seemed to pause their flicker. Ivy looked up slowly, locking eyes with her mother. Then her father. Then Amelia, who had the nerve to give a tight, almost pitying smile. "So let me make sure I understand," Ivy said, voice calm. "You want my wedding to start with Amelia in front of me? In white? On my aisle? At my ceremony?" Victor nodded once. "It's a symbol, Ivy. Nothing more." Amelia leaned forward, voice syrupy. "It's just a few seconds. I think it'll be beautiful." Ivy studied her for a long, long moment. The kind of look that peels layers back without saying a word. Then she smiled. "Sure." Eleanor blinked. Sorry, what?" "I said sure," Ivy repeated, with just a hint of something cold beneath the sweetness. "Let her walk first." Amelia blinked, caught off guard. "That's very mature of you," Eleanor said slowly, trying to read her daughter. "I know," Ivy said, setting her napkin down. "But I have a condition." Victor narrowed his eyes. "What kind of condition?" Ivy leaned back in her chair, tone as casual as if she were discussing the wine list. "I want full control over the guest list. Final, non-negotiable. No edits. No surprises." A beat of hesitation. Victor looked at Eleanor. Eleanor hesitated too long. "It's a small ask," Knox added quietly. "Considering what she's giving you." Eleanor finally nodded. "Fine. If that's what you want." Ivy smiled wider. "It is." And for the first time that night, Knox looked at her differently. Not with concern. With recognition. The quiet girl with the polite smile was gone. This was someone else. Someone playing the long game. The attic hadn't been touched in years. Dust danced in the sunlight streaming through a narrow window, casting thin golden lines across forgotten trunks and broken memories. Ivy stood alone, her silk robe brushing against the old wooden floor as she moved carefully between boxes marked holiday decor, college storage Amelia, and Margaret's books do not touch. That last one stopped her. She crouched beside it, fingertips grazing the faded Sharpie letters. Her mother's name, nearly erased by time, still hit her like a whisper from the grave. "Do not touch." They'd all said that after Margaret died. Especially Eleanor. Ivy was 16. Grief-stricken, confused. And obedient. But not today. She pried the lid off slowly. The scent of old paper and lavender sachets hit her instantly, so familiar it made her chest ache. Inside were hardcover novels, poetry collections, a photo album. She picked up a tattered copy of Little Women, its spine cracked, pages bookmarked with old receipts and dried petals. She smiled. Then paused. There, nestled beneath the cover like something someone had meant to hide, but not well enough, was a cream-colored envelope. No address. Just her name. Ivy. Her breath hitched. She sat down on the floor, heart suddenly pounding. Carefully, she broke the seal. Inside was a handwritten letter. My Ivy. If you're reading this, it means the truth has found its way to you, even if I couldn't give it to you myself. I fought for you, baby. Even when they made me feel like I shouldn't. I left something for you, a piece of your future no one else has the right to touch. Don't let them tell you who you are. Love always. Mom. The paper trembled in her hands. Underneath the letter was a stapled document, yellowed slightly, stamped, signed. Last Will and Testament, Margaret Flores. Her fingers moved numbly, flipping the pages. Then stopped. I bequeath the amount of $1 million to my biological daughter, Ivy Quinn, the sole bearer of my name and legal heir following the divorce proceedings. $1 million. To her. And she had never known. Her entire body went still. The blood roared in her ears. The room blurred. They knew. Victor. Eleanor. They knew. And instead of honoring Margaret's wishes, they'd buried her legacy. Used it, stolen it, to build Amelia's empire of internships and fashion galas and European getaways. They made Ivy feel like the afterthought. The spare. The burden. But she was never the burden. She was the target. Footsteps creaked behind her. She turned sharply. Knox stood at the attic door, eyes narrowing when he saw her face. What happened? He asked, instantly on alert. She didn't answer. Just handed him the letter and the will. He read fast, jaw tightening with every line. When he finished, he looked up slowly. How long have they been sitting on this? Over a decade, Ivy whispered. Knox's voice dropped into something cold. Calculated. They robbed you. They erased her, Ivy said, throat tight. They turned me into some grateful backup plan. While they funded Amelia's life with money that wasn't even theirs. A long silence. Then. This is fraud, Knox said. We can take them down for this. I don't want courtrooms. Then what do you want, Ivy? She met his gaze, steady, unwavering. I want every single person at that wedding to know what kind of people they are. I want them exposed, humiliated, and stripped of the story they built for themselves at my expense. Knox gave a slow nod. Then his voice dropped, low and deadly. Then it's time. Ivy stood, clutching the documents to her chest. Her fingers were still shaking, but her spine had never been straighter. Time for what? She asked. Knox's smile was the sharp kind, the kind that cut. For the real ceremony to begin. Revenge wasn't loud. It was precise. Quiet. Surgical. Like the soft click of a queen sliding across a chessboard, setting the king up for a fall. And Ivy. Ivy had stopped playing defense. The first move was subtle. Amelia's gown, Ivy said one evening, seated at Knox's desk as he scrolled through his laptop. What about it? She asked for a blush-toned evening dress for the welcome reception. It's practically bridal. Almost identical to mine, just a shade off-white. Knox raised an eyebrow. Typical. She ordered it from Arlette's boutique. Custom, rush-stitched. I overheard her gushing on the phone. You want it gone. I want it delayed. She'll panic without options. Especially when she realizes the stylist we booked is stuck in Napa with the flu. Knox picked up his phone. Done. The second move came in the form of an Excel spreadsheet. Eleanor had insisted on controlling the guest list, sending Ivy a final version 2 days ago. It was clean, predictable, colleagues, family, friends of the Quinns. And then, a suspiciously long section labeled Amelia's circle. Let me guess, Knox said, scanning it, you're not allowed to invite your college roommates, but she gets her entire yoga retreat. Exactly. So Ivy and Knox printed 2 lists. The one Eleanor would send out, full of meaningless names, scheduled to bounce from dummy emails. And the real list, delivered personally to Ivy's people. Those who mattered. Those who would understand. Let's see how she shines when no one claps for her, Ivy murmured, clicking send. The third move was the riskiest. The family strategy meeting was scheduled the morning before the wedding. A final review of logistics, music cues, aisle placements, family photos. Everything Eleanor loved to micromanage. But this time, Ivy came early. She placed the recorder inside a hollowed book, spine pressed neatly between 2 antique volumes on the study's bookshelf. The microphone faced the center of the room, right where Victor always sat today. And when they entered, the trap was set. Amelia should walk first. It's not a debate, Eleanor snapped, flipping through her clipboard. She agreed, Victor added. And for a full wedding paid for, it's a fair deal. She won't make a scene. As long as no one ever finds that damn will, Eleanor muttered. Don't say that word, Victor hissed. We burned the original. Jonathan buried the rest. It's done. Click. Got it. Ivy sat in the corner, perfectly still. She offered no reaction. No expression. She simply sipped her tea. Knox retrieved the recorder later that night, played the file back on his phone in their suite. This is gold, he whispered. They've just convicted themselves. And tomorrow, they'll do it in front of 200 witnesses. Including one they won't see coming. The final move was a name on the guest list. Jonathan Hayes. Formerly the family's personal legal shield. Now, disillusioned. Disgraced. And very, very guilty. Ivy tracked him down herself, cornered him in his office late at night, the city skyline burning orange behind her. You owe me more than silence, she said, voice like glass. You helped them erase my mother. You watched it happen. Jonathan swallowed hard, bags under his eyes betraying sleepless years. What do you want from me? I want you to witness what's coming. I want you sitting front row when the truth comes out. You don't need to say a word. You just need to be there. And not look away. He hesitated. Then nodded. Consider it done. The night before the wedding, Ivy sat by the window again. But this time, she wasn't staring at the dress. She was watching the wind move the trees, calculating the final turn of her trap. Knox stepped behind her, placing a hand on her shoulder. Everything's in place, he said. Then tomorrow, she replied, the masks come off. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. The game was already hers. The day was perfect. Clear skies. Golden light. Guests in silk and champagne. Everything Eleanor Quinn had dreamed of for a high society wedding. Everything except control. Because by 10 a.m., Amelia Quinn was missing. In Ivy's suite, calm reigned. Her makeup artist, hired by Knox's team, worked in precise silence. The stylist adjusted her veil, hands steady. Ivy sat in the center like a queen before coronation, unmoved by the murmurs echoing from the hallway. Then, pounding on the door. Ivy. Amelia. Ivy didn't flinch. Open up. I need to get ready. My hair appointment got cancelled. Mom said I could come here. She said it like it was her right. Like the world was just running late, and she was still the main event. Knox stood and opened the door just a crack. You're not on the schedule. Oh, cut the crap, Knox. I just need 15 minutes. Behind her, her dress bag hung limp. Beige. Wrinkled. Clearly off the rack. Arlette cancelled your order last minute, Ivy called out smoothly. Something about a supplier delay. Shame, really. Amelia blinked, confused. Then furious. You had something to do with this. This is the bride's suite, Knox cut in, voice sharp. And you're not the bride. He shut the door with the finality of a gavel. Downstairs, the ceremony was already filling with guests. Rows of white chairs lined the lawn. A soft quartet played classical strings. The Quinn family name glittered in gold across the welcome sign. Eleanor paced by the floral arch, whispering into her phone, "Where are Amelia's friends? Why aren't they here yet?" Victor barked into his Bluetooth, demanding answers about the missing photographer Amelia had specifically requested. No one picked up. No one came. At 11:15 a.m. sharp, the music changed. All turned toward the aisle as Ivy stepped out, flawless, unbothered, radiating quiet power. And at the center of the altar stood Knox, composed and waiting, a storm behind his eyes. Eleanor forced a smile as Ivy approached. But then, a faint feedback hum. Speakers. Microphones. A click. And then. She doesn't need the money. Margaret's been gone for years. We can use it, for Amelia, for the family. No one's going to question it. Victor's voice. Clear. Unmistakable. Gasps rippled through the crowd like shrapnel. Eleanor's face went pale. Her hand trembled. Another voice followed. Just burn the original. Jonathan will stay quiet. She'll never know. Eleanor. A collective silence fell like a curtain. Then Ivy stepped forward. She turned, slowly, deliberately, to face the crowd. To face her sister. To face her parents. Her voice cut clean through the tension. Funny thing about being left out of everything your whole life, eventually, you learn how to watch. How to listen. She turned to Amelia, whose face was now a frozen mask of confusion and horror. How's it feel, Amelia? To show up and find out you've been erased from the story. To realize you're not the chosen one today. Ivy. Amelia whispered, "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything you haven't done to me 1,000 times before," Ivy replied coldly. "Except I didn't smile while I did it." Victor started forward. "This is outrageous. You're humiliating your own family." Knox moved between them. "No, Victor," he said, "she's exposing the truth." Big difference. The crowd was motionless. Every eye on the Quinns. Every breath held. Eleanor looked as though she might collapse. She reached out for Amelia's arm, but Amelia pulled away, still staring at Ivy, as if seeing her for the first time. Ivy turned to the officiant calmly. "Shall we begin?" And as she took Knox's hand, walking up to the altar, not behind anyone, not in anyone's shadow, there was no applause. Just stunned, perfect silence. And for Ivy Quinn. It was the loudest victory she had ever heard. "This is a lie." Amelia's voice ripped through the ceremony like a sudden thunderclap. Everyone turned. Heads swiveled. Some flinched. Most just stared. She stumbled forward, heels uneven on the stone path, hands trembling with fury. "That recording, it's fake. Ivy edited it. She Frankensteined our voices. Tell them, Dad." Victor moved instinctively, stepping up beside her. But he hesitated, because the eyes of the crowd were not kind. They weren't confused anymore. They were disgusted. Some guests whispered. Some crossed their arms. Others simply stared at Eleanor and Victor like they'd stepped out of a scandal column. "Amelia, please," Eleanor hissed, trying to pull her daughter back. "This isn't the time." "No, they need to know." Amelia cried. "You've always been jealous of me. You twist everything so people feel sorry for you." Ivy stood still at the altar, veil fluttering slightly in the breeze. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. Because someone else did. A figure rose slowly from the front row. Jonathan Hayes adjusted his tie, turned to face the crowd, and spoke, voice crisp, unshaken. "I was the executor of Margaret Flores's will," he said. "I confirm, under oath, if necessary, that the audio you just heard is authentic. The Quinn family suppressed the legal will of the deceased for nearly a decade. The rightful beneficiary was Ivy Quinn, not Amelia." Gasps. Audible. Brutal. Victor's face blanched. His fists clenched. "You traitor," he spat, voice cracking. "No, Victor," Jonathan interrupted, steel in his tone. "I was a coward. For too long. Today, I'm simply done." Amelia turned to her father, voice breaking. "Tell them it's not true. Tell them Mom wouldn't." Victor exploded. "Enough." The rage spilled over. His voice shook the silence. "You planned this, didn't you?" he barked at Ivy. "Every detail. You set us up, to humiliate us in front of everyone." Ivy didn't flinch. She took a small step forward, eyes locked on him. Her voice, when it came, was soft. Controlled. Deadly. "No, Father. I didn't orchestrate anything. I just gave your truth a microphone." He froze. "I didn't twist a single fact. I didn't invent betrayal, or lies, or favoritism. That was all you. All of you." She turned her gaze to Eleanor, who looked smaller now, like a woman unraveling thread by thread. "I simply let the world see what it looks like when masks fall off." There was no applause. Only silence, again. But not the shocked kind from earlier. No, this was judgment. The slow kind. The unforgiving kind. The kind that made Eleanor take a half step back. The kind that made Amelia realize no one was standing with her anymore. No friends. No allies. Not even family. Just empty chairs and silent stares. Later, as the officiant regained composure and the ceremony prepared to resume, Knox leaned toward Ivy and whispered in her ear. "You didn't just pull back the curtain today." She tilted her head slightly, curious. "You burned the whole damn theater down." Ivy smiled. Just a little. And never more proud of the ashes. The air inside the garden pavilion felt electric. Not with romance. But with fallout. Victor had stormed off moments ago, his footsteps echoing like gunshots against marble. Eleanor stood frozen beside the altar, face streaked with mascara, hands trembling like fallen royalty. And Amelia. She snapped. Her heels scraped violently against the stone floor as she lunged toward the champagne table. A gasp rippled through the crowd. No, 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 no. You don't get to do this to me, she shrieked, grabbing a crystal flute of champagne. And then, she turned. Eyes wild. Chest heaving. The glass flew straight toward Ivy's head. But it never landed. Clink. A sharp, clean sound as Knox's hand caught Amelia's wrist mid-throw. The glass tumbled harmlessly to the ground, shattering at his feet. Try that again, he said low, almost amused, and you won't walk out of here at all. Amelia yanked her arm back, shaking, stunned. She looked around wildly, expecting someone, anyone, to come to her defense. No one moved. No one met her eyes. The silence now was absolute. Even the violinist stopped playing. Eleanor finally broke. She sank down onto the nearest chair, hands covering her face, her sobs echoing in the unnatural stillness. The mighty matriarch, brought to her knees. Amelia let out a broken, breathless laugh. You all think she's some kind of hero. She spat. She's a liar. A manipulative, pathetic little. Enough. It was Ivy. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. She stepped forward slowly, chin high, veil trailing behind her like silk armor. I've spent most of my life wondering what it would take for you to finally see me, she said, tone calm. Turns out it wasn't achievement. Or obedience. Or silence. She looked Amelia dead in the eye. Turns out it was a war. Then she turned her back on her sister. And walked, not rushed, not shaken, back to the altar. Each step was a coronation. Each breath, a reclaiming of space that had never been hers. She reached Knox, who took her hand without a word. His grip was steady. Grounded. And then, slowly, one by one, the guests began to clap. Tentatively at first. Then louder. And louder. Until the sound filled every inch of the air that had once belonged to the Quinns. Knox leaned in, brushing his lips against Ivy's ear. You won. Ivy smiled, serene, untouchable. I didn't just win, she whispered. I rewrote the ending. The car sped down the coastal highway, the world outside a blur of golden fields and silver sky. Ivy sat in the back seat, her wedding dress exchanged for a soft cream suit, her veil folded neatly beside her. Knox was beside her, one hand resting gently on hers. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. They were heading for the airport. A new chapter. A clean slate. Her phone buzzed. Mother flashed across the screen. Ivy stared at it for a long second. Then she answered. You're so mean, Eleanor's voice hissed on the other end. No greeting. No apology. Just venom wrapped in satin. You did that to your own family, on your wedding day. In front of everyone. Ivy didn't flinch. Her voice was level. Unshaken. What family? Silence. People don't treat family like that, Mom. And before Eleanor could respond, before another word of guilt or manipulation could slither through the line, Ivy hung up. No hesitation. No regret. Just peace. She let the phone fall into her lap and turned to look out the window. Knox finally spoke, his voice low and sure. You okay? Ivy exhaled slowly, a smile ghosting on her lips. I am now. And this time, she meant it. The cabin lights dimmed to a soft glow as the plane lifted through the clouds, leaving the city, and everything Ivy had ever known, far behind. Outside the window, the sky opened wide, endless and untouched. Ivy leaned back in her seat, fingers still laced with Knox's. The warmth of his grip was steady. Real. Unconditional. He glanced sideways, studying her face. How do you feel? He asked softly. She turned to him. And for the first time in a long, long while, she smiled. Not out of politeness. Not to hide anything. Just because she could. Free, she said. And this time, it's forever. He squeezed her hand. The seatbelt light flicked off. And Ivy Quinn closed her eyes, not to escape, but to begin. Some battles aren't fought with fists or fire. They are fought with silence broken at the right moment. With truth, no matter how long it's been buried. Ivy Quinn didn't burn her past to destroy it. She lit the match to see clearly. Because sometimes, freedom doesn't come from running away. It comes from no longer asking for a seat at a table that was never built for you. And the moment you stop begging for love from people who only ever gave you conditions. That's the moment you become unstoppable. When you stop seeking acceptance from those who never truly valued you. You find the power to reclaim justice. And choose freedom, on your own terms. Forever.